Honor to introduce a good friend of mine, a former now I guess next one, past president of Career Partners. My term ends on September, so I'm passing it over to Ed. But Roque Castro is a longtime Culpeper resident, a CCHS grad, a great success story, and one of our great supporters of economic development and also education in Culpeper County. So Roque is here as a co-chair of Go Virginia Region 9, and he's going to provide an update on the Go Virginia initiatives and activities. So if you're not familiar with Go Virginia, it is a great organization that helps really benefit economic development in the Commonwealth. So his remarks are going to include highlights from Region 9, as well as developments and priorities at the statewide level, offering insight into current economic development strategies and opportunities. Roque, thank you for being here, and thank you for serving as our representative on Region 9.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I will make that clear. I am the Culpeper Chamber appointed rep for Region 9. So I know most of you in the room, but my name is Roque Castro. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of a fintech company called Elysium that my partners and I have been building since 2009. Brought me back to my hometown here in Culpeper 15 years ago when we started the company, and have really allowed me to get more involved in organizations like Career Partners and some economic development issues that are near and dear to my heart. I'm here with Shannon Holland, who's the director of Region 9. She is really the heart and soul of our organization, but also probably the most tenured director, and I will say, happy to say also has the highest success rate of getting Go Virginia grants through the process and funded. So anyways, that said, let's go into a little bit. I know some of this is going to be repeat. Many of you are very familiar with Go Virginia, but as Jeff said, Go Virginia is a state-funded, business-led economic development initiative designed to diversify Virginia's economy and create higher-paying jobs. I'm going to go through about 15 slides, try to blast through a lot of it, but let's talk for a second about the shared problems that Go Virginia was established to tackle. These are all regional, but also very local items that we address. So talent shortages, business growth, entrepreneurship, site readiness, and regional competitiveness. And as we look to a lot of the counties and areas to the north and south of us, we seem to have a key theme more recently around talent shortage. That tends to be a lot of the drivers of projects, whereas maybe 5-10 years ago, site readiness was a key driver of a lot of the Go Virginia projects and initiatives that were coming out of the group. But really, I think the key thesis of this entire deck that we'll go through is that last line, right? This is business, education, local government, regional partners, all coming together to stimulate regional growth. All right, so most business challenges do not stop at county lines. And I think really the premise here is that if Culpeper wants to stand up its own workforce development program, its own budget, its own resources, it might not be as advantageous as partnering with other regions. And so what Go Virginia is established to do is to really combine a lot of the efforts, again, around economic development for the entire region. And we'll get into that in a second. And again, pretty straightforward, avoid duplication and really stretch the resources out and leverage what we've got collaboratively across those county lines. And I'll make a point, from a competitive nature, certainly counties compete against each other. Brian might be trying to buy a business that might want to move here from, say, Charlottesville or Fauquier, but collaboratively as a state, the initiative and the driver of Go Virginia is to make Virginia as a whole a much more competitive state and commonwealth. So I hear lots of times the metrics that we discuss in council meetings often surround, around how are we competitive versus North Carolina or Tennessee or Maryland. All right, so let's look at the Region 9. We are the Piedmont Opportunity Corridor, and we stretch from Fauquier all the way down to Nelson. There's 11 localities that comprise the Region 9 Council. And it really, it's pretty diverse. So what's important to us in Culpeper may not necessarily be a top priority in, say, Fauquier or Fluvanna. But again, the idea of the region collaboration is to identify, and we'll get into sort of the key strategic themes that we look to tackle, but really identify what's the wider points of pressure that we want to address. So in practice, how does it work? It starts with the council. The Council of Region 9 is comprised of business leaders from private sector, as well as government, education, and it is administered via CVPED, so the Central Virginia Partnership for Economic Development. So we also have from Culpeper specifically, Brian, Paige Reed, I think Patrick Mauney is Culpeper based, myself, Leslie Kidd, predecessors, Ed Dalrymple, Ray Knott. Who am I leaving out from?
I know that's the Culpeper's had a lot of representation and support on the council.
Cool.
Yeah.
And feel free to stop me if you have any questions along the way, or Shannon, interject if I'm missing anything. Overall, the umbrella that administers the entire state is DHCD. So we have representation within every council meeting of DHCD members, CVPED members, as well as the economic developers from every single one of these municipalities and the private sector. So the council's roughly 20.
It's 23 members, and it's driven majority private sector, meaning of those 23, 12 are private sector, and the chair and vice chair have to be private sector.
Got it. All right. All right, let's talk about our playbook. So the heart of what we do is based off of what we call our growth and diversification plan. This is really the roadmap of what drives Go Virginia. Each region has its own growth plan. It gets refreshed every 2 years, and it really helps and is guided by these core questions that are answered within the roadmap. Everything that is created out of the council, out of Go Virginia, is also public domain, available on the Go Virginia Region 9 website. So I'd highly recommend go troll through the site on occasion and feel free to download any of the materials and refer back. But really, the plan helps us determine which industries have the strongest growth potential in the region, where the talent and workforce gaps exist, the types of business support needed, what infrastructure we need to be competitive, and the challenges that are best solved regionally. In the 2025 plan, which was the last one that we've been operating from, it really outlines and gets into the minutia of 20 specific grant opportunities that were identified out of the blueprint. All right, so here are the core target sectors that we as a region have identified as focus areas. Biomedical, biotech, kind of lumps in some of the health services and pharma as well. Financial and business services, food and beverage manufacturing, IT communications, and light manufacturing. And really, the action items, if these are the target sectors, the activities involved talent development, helping grow existing businesses, entrepreneurship, and site readiness. This is, again, I think, really kind of the meat and potatoes of what the group does and focuses on. All right, so let's look at the outcomes. In the 10 years since the inception of Go Virginia, so the organization was founded in 2016. The first grant was underwritten in 2017. Here are the key metrics. 35 projects have been funded and executed and delivered out of our region. $13.2 million have come from the Go Virginia pool of money. 14.5 have been matched. So part of the whole grant process includes finding non-state money through private and local partners, and nearly 1,200 jobs created. I think really the interesting number is that 14.5 million. That's the force multiplier that has really allowed us to invest $30 million into our region.
You might get this on the next slide, but I definitely want to tell you, the first Go Virginia grant in Go Virginia Region 9 came from Culpeper. So I saw Laura Loveday's office. I want to give her a hug, even though she's not in there, because she and I had to figure out this program. She was bold enough to put the name of the grant was George Washington Carver Piedmont Technical Education Center at the time, which I know that name has evolved, but it was for the help expand the new pathway with some equipment purchases and stand up a welding school, which I understand has moved on. But that was the first grant in Go Virginia Region 9, and she was instrumental in helping us figure out, we just waded in together. It's always gratifying. She does such great work. It was great to see her office right there. Yeah, so that they submitted in 2017, and it was awarded in 2018. Good old days.
Cool. All right. Moving on. Okay, so here's some specific examples of projects in action for our region. Some of the names you may be familiar with, some of them perhaps not, but if you look at sort of those, if we go back to that slide 2 where we have the core pillars that we're addressing, many of these have direct implications here in Culpeper. So Shannon just mentioned that new pathways and welding school went up in the upper left quadrant. Entrepreneurship, there's one. Certainly about a year ago, I had a real aha moment in that I've been on this council now for 4-ish years. Also serve on the board of the Path Foundation, who's been a key partner in a number of the grants and matching funds. And I got to see the rural entrepreneur ecosystem and the Venture Central program. If you're familiar with CIC, so that's the Community Investment Collaborative, they run a series of entrepreneur workshops for small new business owners, and they had received a grant through Go Virginia in conjunction with Path Foundation. And what I got to see was the graduation of a cohort of young entrepreneurs. I think Tripp, you were there as well, where these were entrepreneurs that needed to learn business literacy 101. 2 of them in particular wanted to start food trucks, which they did successfully. They went through this entrepreneur workshop, graduated, were now given access to small business loans, got financing to expand to 2nd and 3rd food trucks to service the construction community out at the data centers that are being developed. So some of the data center work came from site readiness grants from 7-8 years ago, then grants that funded, the Rural Entrepreneur Venture Central program onto those food trucks, full circle also that they're operating out of the Carver Food Center. So it checked so many boxes that had periphery and collateral of Go Virginia and fingerprints all over it. So again, that's a concentrated example, but it really came from 10 years of planning and work for something like that to happen. Some of the projects since I've been on the council that have really gathered a lot of momentum and headlines. Lower left, Seville BioHub. Are you all familiar with this? It's a business accelerator, incubator organization out of the Charlottesville North Fork Business Park. It sort of stemmed out of the UVA biotech community, but has now become this accelerator for probably 100+ startups that come through Seville BioHub, and they created a very instrumental consortium for that community of entrepreneur startups and a lot of academics that have started projects, come through Seville BioHub, and we'll see in a second, it was instrumental in helping land some of these bigger mandates. For example, AstraZeneca choosing this region to build one of their largest R&D facilities around the globe. That decision was, certainly influenced by a lot of the groundwork that economic development had done years prior. Seville BioHub being one little blip on that radar. I think these are the last, 3 or 4 months worth of, or 6 months worth of some headlines that have just come out of our region's work. UVA, of course, announcing their partnership to launch the biotech accelerator program, L3 Harris's announcement for expansion. And one thing I'll point out that the grants coming out of Go Virginia are not intended to necessarily go to a specific business, but really to fund larger initiatives, such as the ones that that were highlighted in the previous slide. So transformational projects, tech academies, the site development, site work, innovation hubs. That's really the genesis of a lot of the Go Virginia projects. But anyways, Culpeper specifically, I wanted to highlight Lower Center. There was some publicity around the Carver Food Enterprise Center and a lot of their workshops. Again, this is a byproduct of some of the original Go Virginia funding and the intent of what those grants were intended to deliver. All right, so more of the big wins in our region, or I'd say right in our backyard. While some of those previous headlines did not specifically say Culpeper, the sort of maybe call to action that I want to continue shouting and certainly be an ambassador for Culpeper in particular is that we should be very aware of what these wins are in the region. There should be opportunities for your own businesses to be involved in and or gain benefit from a lot of these wins. So, you know, the biotech, the pharma announcements, while most of them are coming out of UVA, Charlottesville region, and I think it's beyond AstraZeneca. You've got Afton Scientific, you've got another, I don't know, it's roughly $5 billion worth of investment hitting that region, that municipality just in the next few years in investment from this community. There should be some service opportunities for us here in Culpeper. So businesses that are support organizations, supply chain, should absolutely be hungry and want to go and partner with some of these, these announcements and business opportunities that have spawned. Defense, in particular, has become a huge focus to the point that CVPED have recently hired a defense liaison, a gentleman named Miles Davis. You might want to have him come as a guest speaker at some point in the future, but his sole focus is trying to figure out how to connect Region 9 businesses with the defense community, as there's a lot of money and opportunity coming down the pipeline in that industry. So Miles Davis, great resource, but again, for us, it highlighted the fact that now we have someone whose sole job is to create this defense support corridor in our region, and having a seat at the Go Virginia table is really important. And then, of course, we have a thriving wine and beverage industry in Culpeper. We have for a long time, and we've got some great advocates in that industry sitting at the Go Virginia table, ensuring that projects are still being presented and championed through the process. What are some of the grants, the projects that we've had more recently? There's a coalition.
Right, we serve the wine industry, but also just under the food and beverage manufacturing. That's been a target sector the council's always sort of kept in the forefront because we have this agricultural base too. And that's a way to serve that industry for its added value potential. So we have worked in the wine industry. We're funded to build out a coalition for our region, which has been all the wine, most of the wineries in the entire footprint, including those I drove by on the way up here today, thinking about how I'm going home and what time it'll be, have been engaged in that process, and they have strengthened and managed to accomplish a lot in engaging all those private sector companies to figure out what their problems are and start addressing them. They're now coming back to us at some point to the council to ask for a statewide, or to collaborate with Region 8 over in the valley and address some supply chain issues they've identified as an issue for our industry. And that's an example of how we can serve that industry. And kind of a little bit ironically, that group has modeled their efforts after how the SIBO BioHub group came together as a private sector-led initiative and grown. And that has seemed to be a model in our region that's really working. When you get that private sector leadership, helps address regional issues with the private sector at the table. Is that what you were looking for, Roque?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and start the descent here. All right, so last couple slides. On the left, sort of again, these are the challenges, the shared challenges that we're trying to address, and I hope that some of these resonate with you. And on the right is really the sequence or the steps in how to get a Go Virginia grant or project to the table and funded. And it's first and foremost, it really begins with a conversation. And if I were to highlight one point in particular, it'd be point number 4, talk with Shannon and her team early and often, because she can walk you through the entire process, send you back to the drawing board. Any project that we consider must have multi-region, multi-jurisdictional consideration. One of the highlight slides I didn't point out earlier in one of the headlines, it was the mobile AI tech unit. So you may or may not be familiar with this, but there's an initiative out of Fredericksburg. So that'd be region 3. So we're kind of a co-partner of it, but it's through an organization called Cyberbytes, and they're going around teaching school staff in various school systems, as well as for bespoke type training, AI technologies and AI literacy and training. And so they've got some curriculum that they've created, but that's a great example of initiative that I think came through a couple times
It did, yes.
before.
Had to iterate. for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, you said you were making, that was funny. You said bringing this down, but that's what I see myself as. We're on it. Go Virginia is not an easy program. It is complicated state funding. So we own that, but my role is to help make it as simple as possible. I'm sort of like that person on the aircraft carrier with the orange cones like this. So
Yeah.
Please reach out or refer anybody to me. It helps guide the conversation.
Yeah. And I usually suggest you start with number 5, which is make sure your idea and your vision aligns with the growth plan. Then you start getting it on paper and working with Shannon to refine and iterate the whole process.
That's a good thought, yeah.
Yeah. And then the actual process, we have subcommittees within, so as far as governance, Go Virginia, we have subcommittees. There are certain committees that are assigned to each of those 4 target areas that focus on the grants coming through the pipeline and really get into the details and poke holes in them. And again, we'll kick things back for further iterations when requested. So it's a fairly thorough and thoughtful process. We do a lot of it electronically. So we score and grade the grants that we're reviewing through a rubric that's pretty complex in itself. All right, this is one that I'd ask Shannon to toss up, in that I think, again, I look at a lot of the headlines, certainly in the last several years, have tend to be more Charlottesville based. And I think, again, there's a lot of great momentum, but we have to remember that we add a tremendous amount of value. And there's 2 areas in particular that I hear time and time again. Dr. Brad's, what you created in the school system is certainly a model example of the region, right? Certainly in CTE. This comes up time and time again. When we're talking to folks at the table from Orange, Fauquier, they always highlight what has been created in talent pipelines, the organizations like Career Partners that bridge the gap, hard to replicate outside of Culpeper. So I think the talent pipeline, continue to refine. It's a great support model, filling in the gaps that is being recognized by the region. And then compared to neighboring counties, perhaps to the north and Charlottesville region, Culpeper still lands in the affordable housing bucket. So, we're seeing a lot of growth coming out of regions to the south that are going to need housing and perhaps will be commuting from here. So, again, my call to action was really about, thinking bigger, thinking regionally, feel free to reach out to myself, Shannon, directly if you want to understand what's going on outside of Culpeper. You've got a great organization here, but certainly, we can be eyes and ears. I'm your eyes and ears within this group. So don't hesitate to reach out. And there's my contact information. So any questions?
What is the project you currently work on, and need help with, or what's actually going on?
We've got, we've just had a cycle of projects. We always have, and Shannon typically knows what grants are going to be coming down the pipeline. I think we've got expansion around some of the AI, AI use cases. We certainly have more of the biotech and pharma workforce development. So we're thinking of a lot of the technical. So we've been hearing from especially out of the Seville BioHub community, they need more of the lower level trained workforce like laboratory technicians. They're getting great scientists, great academics coming out of UVA, but we don't have a pipeline for the folks that are going to be working at AstraZeneca. So I think that's going to be a big focus. Certainly DoD. Now, I don't know specifically of any projects DoD related.
Well, it's a great question, because last night I was working on a presentation for the council to do a deep dive into our pipeline of projects. That pipeline can be like this, 10, 0, and then 10. But here's if I can try and give a high level. For talent development, we have the Central Virginia National Security Alliance that Roque mentioned is in an early stage of discussing how to create a cleared talent pipeline. So security clearances for private sector businesses that support National Security Department, DoD, DOW, whatever you call it now, companies. And they're going to work with UVA on that. The Seville BioHub the council invested in a planning grant, a talent pathway planning grant, to look at actually our entire region in terms of where's the talent pathway or pipeline for bio companies, expansion down the road. AstraZeneca, we have Afton, and an emerging sector there that we expect to grow. What do we have in high school to serve that? What do we have in community college, et cetera? So Seville Bio is looking to do an implementation grant to help build that infrastructure out. The community college, which is in early stages, PVCC, Germana, and I'm not sure how much they're collaborating, are looking at doing, and these are very early projects, a cyber range, which I'm not 100% sure what that means. I'll tell you that's how early it is. Another one is a bioscience academy, which the state may or may not be funding. So I'm sitting on the sidelines on that. The Central Virginia Partnership is looking at a report that the Count Silky's familiar with, the Innovation Quarter Roadmap, which they looked at all the data for our entire region to determine what are the future clusters. Brian's been involved with that as well. He can speak to it. Those target industries, the 5, and how they align together to facilitate growth throughout the region. And national security was identified, bioscience, and these cross-cutting industries of IT, which serve both, manufacturing, which serve both, and how can we grow the region and so everybody benefits. They're looking at doing some type of next step iteration of. So those are some high-level thoughts on what's in the pipeline right now. And the wine industry, of course, looking for a statewide grant, which I mentioned earlier. Does that make sense?
Miles has a meeting on August 25th, right?
Right, Miles. This is outside of Go Virginia, but certainly one of the important stakeholders in our region. There is a meeting on August 25th. I've sent it out to my council, and I'm glad to share it with you as well, or Silky probably has it, a critical infrastructure meeting where he's bringing state level representation from national security, FBI. I mean, he's got some really high level people there to talk about infrastructure and protecting infrastructure for cybersecurity or physical. I don't want to use the word attack, but I think that's the right word. So, that's August 25th, and it's registration still open. It is at the PVCC Bollock Center.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can tell you some, and it's would be very early stage, not even in front of, you've kicked back a couple of times. On the advanced manufacturing side, we've got a collaboration with New Pathways, a group called Gen Edge, and then folks out of Norfolk, Danville, trying to triangulate a lot of the advanced stuff they're doing out of Danville for the shipyard, in Norfolk and Newport News, and trying to bring some of those capabilities to Culpeper. And again, then tie back into a lot of, and so that was a successful Go Virginia grant to build the cobotic and robotic welding school in Newport News.
Yeah,
We're taking a play out of that book, having that group Gen Edge kind of be the lead blocker, and then finding the other support organizations. But that's something near and dear to my heart that I think will be probably the next couple years coming through the
Yeah.
process.